All right, welcome everyone. Now that we've got everything, it looks like hooked up properly, I want to show off our beautiful view for the week. So we're in Cyport. We just got done volunteering here, helping them get set up after a brief shutdown. So thankfully they're back up and running. And I know, especially for those of us with kids, or again, those who are just kids at heart, this is a great place for learning and fun. And so we wanted to contribute in some way to our community. And so this was the way that we found that aligned really well with our values for being human church. And that's to, of course, cause humanity to survive and thrive by being better. So today, we're going to talk a little bit more about community in terms of community, connecting with each other, and the benefits and downfalls of social media. So we know that community is necessary as humans. We're social creatures. We also know it's really beneficial to us as individuals. We have redundancy. We have people to rely on in times of hardship. But we also know that building community can be very difficult, particularly when we get around a lot of people. So social media can be both a positive to that. So it can enhance your relationships. It can allow you to remain connected to those people who are far away. But it can also be a significant detractor. It can make you feel as though you're connected when you really aren't. And so what we ask that you consider this time are a couple of different factors when we talk about building community. One of those things is Dunbar's number. So it's this idea that you can really only know, in terms of a realistic friendship, about 150 people. And Dunbar came up with this number through studying tribes throughout human history. And tribe sizes tended to be no larger than about 150. So when we consider that, we have to think about how do we actually build those human connections? How do we build community that works together? And so there's a really great video, I'll post it later, there's a good TED Talk on it, about Harvard's, it's the longest happiness study. It was a study they've done over the course of 75 years, following this cohort of people from the late 1930s, still today, all the way into their 90s. And they asked them throughout their lives, what has brought them value, what contributed, they think, to their success or failure. And the thing that they found was that, much like people today who think they want money or fame or whatever it is, they found that what actually helped protect them and gave them that true happiness was relationships, was creating the conditions for good relationships. So if that's what we're trying to do, if that's the thing that's going to make us better, then we need to focus our efforts on building community that allows us to have good relationships. Not more Facebook friends, not just more social interaction, but real relationships. And so as we go through today's talk, I would ask you to consider the question, are we investing our time and attention appropriately? Because those are the resources you can't ever really get back. You can make more money, you can make more food, you can make more housing for your family, but you can't ever make more time. And you can't ever win back the time where you weren't paying attention to the right things. So going back to Dunbar's number, so if 150 is about the right size, how do we establish those bits of community? And so while 150 is the number for kind of the maximum size of a tribe, there are actually different numbers that Dunbar researched. So 5 is about the number of people you would have to rely on for a close support group. So that's going to be your immediate family, your spouse, your parents. It's a very, very small group, the people you really trust to be most vulnerable with. Then there's a group of about 15, and those are people you could go to for sympathy or kind of general support. Above that, you would have 50, that's your group of close friends, in the sense of these are the people you would invite to a dinner party, right? That you know well enough that, yeah, I would have them over and we would have a good conversation. Then 150 people we talked about, those are what you would call casual friends, people you are, you know a little bit about, and you feel comfortable being around. Then 500 is the amount of acquaintances you have, right? So people you met, you know a little bit about, but not that much. And then about 1,500 is the number of people that you could match names to faces. So that's a lot of statistics for just a random bit of conversation. But I think it helps us to orient ourselves in creating the right kinds of groups and investing the right amount of energy for each of those groups? Are we investing the time to build a close 5 and a sympathy 15? Or are we more on the 500 end where we have lots of acquaintances and we're investing our time there, investing our time in social media, and not on the end where we're actually going to get that support? So Dunbar had a great quote. There's an article in the New Yorker, and I'll link that later as well, which I think is really important to consider social media versus real life. So Dunbar said, in the sandpit of life, when somebody kicks sand in your face, you can't get out of the sandpit. You have to deal with it, learn, and compromise. But he says, on the internet, you can pull the plug and walk away. There's no forcing mechanism that makes us have to learn. So there's a clear delineation between what you can accomplish in social media and what you can accomplish in real life. So we know, of course, rarely has anyone ever been convinced of something in a strong argument online, because you can pull the plug and walk away. There's nothing, there's no investment in that conversation. And so social media, of course, helps us to stay in touch. I personally use it to send pictures to my mom of my kids so that she can stay in touch with them and be a part of their life, despite the fact that we're, hundreds of miles away. So there is benefit in that, and that's the original purpose of social media, right? Is to keep us connected socially. Unfortunately today, social media and our engagement online in general has become something more indifferent, and I think we have lost sight of what we are paying when we engage in social media and online. So with social media, as we discussed this, also ask this question: is it good for us as individuals, and is it good for us as communities? Because for it to be good, it needs to be both, I think. So there's a researcher, her name is Zeynep Tufekci, and she has researched what power social media has over us. So there's a good TED Talk, I'll link that later. And she surmises that we are effectively giving these companies surveillance power over us. And so she says that initially, right now, what we're really doing with that is allowing them to track us so they can sell us products online, right? You go out and search for something, and that thing will follow you around, Facebook or wherever else for a week or two, even if you've already bought it. But what could be done with that power? And we've seen in the recent elections, and with Cambridge Analytica, and with political operatives, they specifically target us to try and change our behavior. Of course, they want it to be whatever side they're on. And there are ways for us to combat it, but that's what they're doing. They're using this information and the research to say, I think I can sway these people, or I think I can keep these people from voting at all because they're not on my side, so I don't want them out there. So we are voluntarily giving them information that makes it easier for them to sway our opinions and to change our behaviors. So what do we do about that? There's a saying that says, if you're not paying, you're the product. Now, it's a very simplified version of basically what we're talking about for online engagement. And we'll talk a little bit more about it. But if you're the product, realize that it's not just for advertising. It's not just for products that they're trying to sell you. It's political and foreign agents that are trying to influence us. And often, let's say they have a noble heart, right? And they're trying to convince us to do something good, like protect the environment. Like, that's nice. But likely the people who are using this power are doing so with a complete disregard for truth and consequences. They don't care what's going to happen in the long term of humanity. They only care that they win the finite game of that election or that product cycle. So we need to realize what it is that we're paying into when we are the product. And so again, it's not really you. Like, you aren't packaged up and sold to people. You still have free will. You still have the ability to determine if you're going to engage in whatever it happens to be. But realize that your personal data has become the product. And it's become that product because we and our representatives in government, we've let it happen. Right? So in the EU right now, there are some new laws being passed that take a different, that have a different take on personal data and what it is that we are, what are our rights as individuals in the digital world. I think we should take a look at those. Does it mean they got 100% right? Who knows? But it's something that we should at least be considering, because this is us. And it's us allowing others to have power over us, the power to sway us. So there's another saying from a great book that I like, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Right? So again, you might not necessarily be the product, but if something is free, you are paying for it in some way. You're paying for it with your time and your attention, which those platforms can then say, look at all the time and attention that we can win, give us your advertising dollars. Or if they package up and sell that data to those political operatives, what you're saying, what those platforms are saying is that I have all this time and attention, here's your opportunity to sway these people. And those operatives might not be doing it in the most ethical manner. So what should we think about when we're examining social media? Is it worth the payment? So not only from the political and the persuasion side, but just in terms of where you're spending your time. Is it worth your payment of time to be on social media? Is it worth all the pictures that we take and post to curate our lives? Or is that too high of an expense? Are you missing out on building real-world relationships that could care for you in your time of need because you're focused on the appearance of the social media life? So I would ask that we consider where we're spending our time, where we're spending our attention, and what that means for social media. Like I said, it can be a great tool if used well. I work in PR, so I work with social media very regularly. But in my personal time, I've turned off my Facebook notifications on my phone. I check it once a day or less. And the only time I really even put anything on there is, again, so I can share pictures of my kids with my mom. That's what social media does for me. And all the other stuff, when I would read people's feeds or go in and spend an hour on it, I've done that, to be honest. But I choose not to anymore because I realize that my time is more valuable and better spent elsewhere, like with my kids and with my family and here. And then, how should we shape and benefit from social media? Right? The products they offer right now are the products they offer, but that's not to say that they wouldn't be persuaded by, consumer advocacy to say, we would like something a little bit different, or something where we control what data we put out there, or how it's packaged, or how you sell it, or if you sell it at all. And that might change the model. It might make it more or less free. It might make it where it's monetized at different levels. As always, there's a risk and benefit for any decision we make. But we need to ask these questions. And so what model of social media benefits us, again, both as individuals and as communities? And then how does it do so in these three ways? Socially, right? Economically, in terms of interacting in the market, and politically. I think it's important that we consider at least that maybe social media is not a good thing. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I mean, it would take a little bit more study than me standing up here in a well-lit room. But we should at least ask the question. We should be skeptical. We should have doubts. Is the world a better place without social media? On one hand, it's the thing that fueled revolutions against dictators. On the other hand, it's created immense political polarization and distrust in a lot of other places. Now, what will the final balance be? Who knows? But we need to at least be skeptical, right? It's one of the foundational principles of our church, right? Be skeptical. Our foundation is doubt. So I think we need to consider at our own level, and then as a group, as a community, as a country, what do we want social media to look like? So what can you do about it? Well, I think at a personal level, and this goes with basically everything that you see in here, question everything. So Eric posted a great critical thinking cheat sheet, basically. And it helps you run through all the questions you should ask about a topic or a question. One of the ones I think that's most important in this case is who benefits from this? Who benefits from social media right now? Who benefits from our time and attention spent online? Is it us? Do we benefit from that? I would guess that a lot of times the answer is no. So I'm going to post that critical thinking checklist on our site later, and I'll link it in there. But it's something that I think it's good to run down every once in a while in your life when you come up with a question that's kind of out of the normal. Is social media good for me? That's a little bit of an out of the normal question. And then think critically about what you see, hear, and experience every day. This is beyond just social media. What you hear on the news, what you hear from other people. Everyone has a purpose in communicating something to you. Now, they're not all nefarious. They're not all, shady, folks out there trying to bamboozle you in some way. But everyone has a reason, and whether or not they have a good intent or a bad intent doesn't necessarily give you an insight into what the outcome will be. And so it's on us to be skeptical. Another one, cross-reference whatever it is that you hear or find out with other people and other sources. So I study the news. It's part of what I do. And I'll tell you that I never accept anything I hear on television news. Because television news is effectively entertainment today. So when you're looking for good places to find information, I recommend you read it. Not because all online sources or all written sources are not necessarily better, but they allow you to disconnect yourself from the material that you're reading and consider it a bit more thoughtfully. TV is meant to be an emotional medium. Pictures, sound, with information makes things seem more real and more trustworthy. So we should be very careful about where we get our information and then how we check it against what we believe to be true or trustworthy. So sources personally that I go to are things like the wire services, AP and Reuters, NPR, National Public Radio, which has written sources, the BBC for international news. And then I also check the ones that are more clearly partisan to see what each side is saying about something, and realizing that the truth is probably somewhere closer to the middle. Or it might be a story that they're not running at all, but that's always hard to tell. I would recommend not relying on social media for information and news at all. To me, and this is how I use it, social media is for social interaction. It's to stay connected to friends, family, and community. As an information dissemination tool, it can be very powerful, but that's both for good and bad. So be very cautious about what you see and hear on social media. And then, to put it bluntly, spend most of your time in meet space where the people are, not online. Most of your time should be spent with actual people. And that's become a harder thing, I think, today, because it's very easy to stay online and home because it's safe. We know we can unplug and walk away. But that's exactly the thing that disadvantages us as a community in the long run. And then lastly, spend your resources wisely. We often pay in today's world with our two most valuable resources, time and attention. And again, you can't make more time, but you can make more of just about anything else. So with that, I'd like to end with our gratitudes for the day and for the week. So I'll let you all think about what you were grateful for, just one thing in the last week that you were grateful for, and then one thing you're looking forward to in the week to come. So I know coming up this week, and actually later today, I'm grateful for, we're having a group of us in my family, we're going out to it's a farm festival, right, basically. So it should be a really good opportunity to get outside a little bit. It's a beautiful day, as you can see from the sun, and just spend a little bit of time, again, away from the computers. And I I'm really grateful for the opportunity we had to volunteer today. It was awesome, really, to get out and do something good, use some of our skills, and mostly just cleaning, but that's okay, because I think it's done some good, and I think we're going to continue to do that, engage here, because we believe in science and teaching others about science. So does anyone have something that they were grateful for from the last week and something they're looking forward to? Mayor.
I'm grateful that I was able to celebrate my 2-year gotcha day with my son. 2 years since we adopted him yesterday. So that was what I'm grateful for. I am looking forward to spending time with them and decorating the house for Halloween this week.
There you go. So because the microphone doesn't pick up that well, Mary was saying that she's grateful for her 2-year gotcha day when she adopted her son, and then looking forward to decorating for Halloween. Eric, you got one?
Oh, sure. I'm grateful for the comedy show we went to on Friday. It was fantastic. And laughing makes you feel so much better. It made my whole weekend.
Yeah.
And it's really good medicine. I'm looking forward to go to the farm also, and there's another comedy show week from Tuesday. We go to that too. So
All kinds of stuff to look forward to. Yeah, comedy is one of those great things. So we wrote a good piece after a comedy show we went to, I don't know, a couple months ago now. Laughter is a great medicine for just about everything. It's one of those things where it's a very human emotional outburst, and it helps us deal with a lot of the craziness in the world. It helps us to laugh at things, but also consider them at the same time. So I don't go to comedy clubs that much. Like normally I'm just not a comedy fan, but I am a fan of the concept of comedy and laughing. And I'm more like a small scale comedy guy, so I still appreciate comedy greatly. Anyone else? Katie?
Yeah, well, on social media, I've been meeting new people, and I just had the opportunity this past week to have somebody that I've been corresponding with online come and visit in person, spend a week here, and we did tourist things all around the area. That was really fun, and I'm retired now, and I'm loving every day. I tell people every day is Saturday now.
That's great.
And so this week I'm looking forward to doing some more things with my mother and my son.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's a fantastic example of social media. You actually get to know somebody and meet them, and then you meet up in real life and do great things together. And a lot of that would be more difficult without social media. So it's a great use case for that. Right. And I think that's fantastic, a fantastic use and a great lesson of how it can be both good and bad. And it really depends a lot on us and how we use it as a tool. So anyone else? Brandon? Nice. So Brandon was saying that he was grateful for learning some new skills and helping out today. He installed some fluorescent light ballasts in the ceiling and is looking forward to his first half marathon. So awesome. Good fitness goal as well. So that's cool. All right, y'all. Well, I think that about wraps it up for today. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for everyone who was able to come out and volunteer this morning. I think that was a great opportunity, and we're going to continue to do that. And so I wish you all the best week, and we'll see you next time.